The Flash Season 3, Episode 11, Dead or Alive. This episode pretty much only had 5 characters, and it was HR, Cisco, Iris, and Wally, and then the villain whose name I don't even remember. And I'm fine with that. It was actually a really good episode as far as focusing on the characters and their issues, mostly with the emotional stuff that they did with Iris, although it was kind of what they do in this show sometimes, where the characters have certain ideas and they kind of just forget what everybody else is thinking, even though it's logically dangerous. They kind of push past that sometimes, and I feel like it's either Iris or Barry that do that the most, because they kind of just have either it's the hero thing with Barry or it's just being a journalist with Iris. And even when people always say you shouldn't do this because you're either not ready, or simply put, you can get killed because you're not superhuman, both of them always seem to go past it. Maybe that's why they work. And Iris does this in this episode, and she even enlists Wally's help, who's pretty much just on cloud nine. He's getting the attention of like a bunch of cheerleaders and stuff from the beginning of the episode, and she promises him like the front page in the paper and everything. So he's kind of just living it up with, you know, being the new famous superhero in town, because it's like Flash's old news. Now we have Kid Flash. So I actually like that. I thought it was pretty funny. Just him, he kind of got suckered right into it. Like, all right, you know, I can be popular, and that's pretty much it. And the way they go about it, I thought was pretty cool. And they still somehow managed to keep things from Joe. I don't even remember how that worked, but somehow they managed to keep it from him that she dies in the future. And they're getting closer and closer to it. Of course, at some point he has to figure it out. They have, I don't know, maybe they don't realize that that could be a huge factor in changing the future as far as her actually dying, because, of course, with Joe being an actual cop, he does have certain resources that even Barry doesn't have, as well as other dude who I still can't remember his name. Man, what is his name? I can never remember his name. All I can think of is Malfoy. But they don't want to worry him, of course, so they still, you know, hide things from him, and they have to, as Iris is trying to get Wally to read the file so that they can get, you know, one up on this report. I love that sequence where she's freaking out Joe, and she goes into like, you know, what type of animal does he like, and he's freaking out, and he's like, he pulls out like a handkerchief and like dabs his forehead and stuff. And I thought that was a great scene with him. It was just really, really funny. But everything else they had in this, I thought, was actually pretty serious. There weren't too many comedic moments in this episode. It was either Iris is risking her life, which is really dangerous, and of course she does almost get killed. And as crazy as it was, I did love this scene when she got caught by the arms dealer, and she was like, "Oh, I'm not, you know, I'm not meant to die." Although the last episode, all they were talking about was, okay, we said one thing, so that completely changed the future, because we said something to HR, so now he's in, you know, the future during that event. And she was just like, nah, I'm just not meant to die. Like, that's pretty much all she was thinking. And I love that sequence. It was a very crazy thing to do, but that's what made me like that. It was just, she was really crazy. Like, it was almost like her own superpower. Like, I know when I'm supposed to die, so it won't be today. And she was just way too confident, because anything could happen that just completely changes the future. But I still love that scene because it was so crazy that she was, you know, thinking that way. And, you know, Wally comes in and he rescues her and stuff, and I just like the way it played out. Like, I just liked that she was kind of in her own head a little bit, like way too much, thinking she just knew this is 100% what's going to happen, and she was so confident, or at least hiding it through most of this episode, that she wasn't freaking out that she was going to die in the future, or at least might die in the future. So, excuse me, I like the way that they kind of played through that idea, and how it just built up to, ultimately, most people are scared to die. So it was a very logical ending. She went through, I think, the normal steps where it's kind of like, all right, we'll figure it out. And then, well, I know I'm going to die in the future, so I'm going to kind of take hold of it. Because she was a little scared that they kind of introduced that a little bit, which is why she was so hard pressed on even doing this report. It was like, what if I die and I basically don't have anything left behind? So they touched on that in the beginning, and then after that, it was kind of just almost like a power trip a little bit. And then it went back to, yeah, she's freaking out, which makes a ton of sense. But I actually like that. Some of the stuff they did there, you know, the decisions that she made were really crazy, because she just assumed that she couldn't possibly die and, you know, die faster and change the future. But I still enjoyed that. And then the other side, which was really the big focus of this episode, was HR being taken, or he was supposed to be taken by this collector from Earth 19, they called it. And Cisco decided that he was going to do trial by combat, which, even as someone who's not inside a TV show, I think trial by combat always means to the death. I've never heard of that being something where you just fight and one person wins and that's it. So it was real dumb of him to, jump the gun on that one. And it was like, well, he said it first before Barry. And that was pretty much it. And he has to train using his abilities. And it was cool to see him use his abilities, although he hadn't mastered them or anything like that. But it was still very cool. I love the fact that they introduced the ability of eventually Cisco being able to actually take a Flash, a speedster's powers, because that's actually in the comic books where he can pretty much slow them down. It's almost like reversing the vibrations. And I thought that was really cool. It just completely stops him and it just saps the power right out of him. And I thought that was cool that they introduced that. And there was a lot of, jumping around in portals and stuff like that. So that was definitely very cool that they showed it. I actually even like the visuals for it because Cisco has like blue waves when he does it. And the Collector, she actually had, Gypsy was her name. She had like red and it kind of looked like fire a little bit because it was sort of wavy during certain parts where they were like, had close-ups of her hands. And I thought that was cool visually. It was like, red versus blue, just obviously contrasting colors, so it makes it pop more. But I like that. I thought it was very cool. And they went through the interesting relationship of HR and Cisco, where he's like, well, you have the face of two people that have really helped me out a lot, one of which ended up, completely betraying me and being a horrible person, but still there were moments where he did something good. So I feel like in a way, this is me kind of repaying that debt. So I actually thought that was very cool. And he talks about how HR depends on the team compared to how the team depended on both former versions of Wells. And it was just cool. I like that they really got into the dynamic of why he's there and why he really matters to these people now. And I thought that definitely did a lot for this episode. It was just that weird dynamic, because all he does is pull out drumsticks out of nowhere. He literally pulled one out of the back of his shirt at the end of this episode. So I guess that's why he always has one on him. But it was cool that they really went through that, sort of odd dynamic of what role he truly plays. So I actually thought that was pretty cool. Of course, Cisco ends up winning in the end. I wasn't surprised that was how it was going to play out. And we have Gypsy. She ends up going back to her Earth, so we may or may not see her in the future because she likes Cisco and Cisco likes her. So she might break the rules in the future, and we actually get to see her team up with Cisco, way down the line. Who knows? But I actually did enjoy this episode. I thought it was cool that mostly the focus was on either Cisco utilizing his powers, or it was on Wally utilizing his powers, even though they're the same as Barry's. Literally it looks different, like that's it, but I'm like, at least it looks different, so there's something to it. But definitely cool. Love the ending where Barry kind of realized, oh, this isn't going to work. I'm not the one who's going to be able to save Iris. It's going to have to be Wally, because they even basically say it in the actual dialogue right before Barry kind of reveals it, at the end. And Wally's like, I can't believe I got so much faster in such a short time. And it's like, oh, that's such an easy connection to the beginning of the episode where Barry has to have like an insanely exponential growth in speed in way too short of a time. So that'll be cool. Wally's going to be kind of taking the place, and that's their idea, is to train Wally now and, force him to speed up, and that way he can save Iris in the future. And of course they're going to be freaking out about that in the next episode, because there's a guy who can touch things and kill them. So that's going to be the big focus of the next episode, is Iris almost dying, and then she won't actually die, and then everyone will probably start freaking out like crazy. And who knows what will come after that. But I did enjoy this episode. Would love to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I actually want to know how you guys felt about Iris in this episode, where it was definitely a roller coaster of emotions, where it's like, it's okay, and then she's freaking out about it, and then it wasn't really denial, it was just like assuming, I guess. It's really hard to call it denial, because she's like, I know I'm gonna die, but she was kind of in denial that was it, almost. Like, in that point where she was being, had the gun at her, she was kind of just like, I'm gonna die in the future, I'm not gonna die now. It was kind of denial, but at the same time, the only reason she did that is because she kind of denied even the possibility that she could be saved, in the future, because that's the only reason she was so reckless. It was like, well, I'll just die later. It's not going to be right now. So We'd love to know what you guys thought about that, and what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.